The Washington Post reports this morning that the Food and Drug Administration will announce sweeping new regulations on salt in our food, the first legal limits ever. It's already being praised by public health advocates who say it could be the single most important thing the FDA can do to improve health. Lisa Stark is in Washington this morning with the details. Lisa?
Good morning, George. Well, you talk to a doctor, you talk to public health experts, they'll tell you it's a good idea to reduce salt in your diet. It can cut heart attacks and strokes. Now, the Washington Post this morning is reporting that the FDA wants to help all of us do that. Now, according to the Post, the FDA has a plan that over 10 years they would work to reduce salt consumption. This would be a long-term plan. They would work voluntarily with the industry to try to get the industry to do this, and perhaps, the Post is saying, even eventually set legal limits for salt. Now, here are the current salt guidelines. What we're being told by experts is that the recommended daily intake is about 1 teaspoon a day. How do we do? Well, Americans don't do so well. In fact, they consume about 1.5 times that, as you can see. Now, reducing salt intake, we're told, by about just half a teaspoon a day could prevent nearly 100,000 heart attacks. That's according to the medical experts. So you can see how important it is. Here's the problem. Why can't Americans do that? Well, most of the salt we get is in fact from our processed food. 77% of the salt that we take in every day is in the processed food we eat. Only 6% is added at the table from that salt shaker. So the key, of course, is to get the manufacturers to reduce the salt in those foods. Many of them are starting to do this voluntarily. In fact, a number of companies, ConAgra, PepsiCo, Kraft Foods, General Mills, Sara Lee, and others say they are working to reduce the sodium in their products. What they're really trying to do is to head off federal regulation. In fact, the head of the CDC recently warned companies, hey, get on the bandwagon, you better reduce the salt or the feds are going to start regulating. Now, tomorrow, the Institute of Medicine is going to come out with its long-awaited report on salt, on trying to reduce salt in the American diet. According to the Washington Post, in fact, it's going to say the voluntary measures aren't working and regulation is needed. Now, we did reach the FDA this morning, George, and we want to tell you at this point, they're telling us that there is no initiative that they are going to put forward for sure. This is still a work in progress, so we'll have to see what comes of this.
Okay.
George?
Okay, Lisa, thanks. We'll be watching. Let's get a little more on this from our Dr. Tim Johnson. And you heard in Lisa's report, Tim, that according to the CDC, Americans take in about twice as much salt as they should every day. So this kind of a regulation, if it's actually promulgated, could have a huge effect, right?
Absolutely. As Lisa rightly pointed out, a very recent study suggested that just a half a teaspoon a day reduction per day for everyone would prevent nearly 100,000 heart attacks, 92,000 deaths. Not everybody will benefit, but we can't tell which ones will easily and which ones won't easily. So the best public health recommendation is for everybody to cut down on salt.
Is demanding it? Is the government demand the way to do it?
Well, I think ultimately it's going to come to that in terms of at least working out something with food makers, because as Lisa rightly points out, that's where most of our salt comes from, meaning we really don't have a whole lot of control over it. We don't know what we're getting. Now, we can control the stuff we use ourselves from the salt shaker, but the processed food stuff is so hidden, and we don't know what it is, and we don't read the labels. So the only way we're going to make a dent in this is to have these processed food makers either voluntarily do it or the government require them to do it.
And as you say, for most people, less salt means better health.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, Tim Johnson, thanks very much.
Okay.